welcome back or welcome to my channel. My name is Taylor and today we'll be going through all the books I read in the month of January, which wasn't that many, so it ought to be quick. But before we hop in the video, remember to like, comment, and subscribe if you love all things books. So first we're going to go through a few bookish stats. So I read 2 fantasies, 1 romance, and 1 nonfiction in the month of January. 2 were physical, 1 was on my Kindle, and 1 was via audiobook. I finally finished it. The nonfiction was a memoir, and I read 2 YA, 2 adult. And I did have 1 5-star. I would give you my average rating, but I don't have StoryGraph pulled up. But yeah, the month of January, she was long. She was a bit of a slog to get through, and some weeks I feel like the life slump that hit me, and I feel like a lot of people at the end of last year, decided to creep back up. So I'm hoping to read more books in the month of February. So far, I think it's looking good. But yeah, I only completed 2 books off of my TBR from last month. So let's just hop into the books, and I'll tell you about the 4 books I read in the month. The first book I finished in the month of January was Marshmallow Mountain by M.A. Wardell and A.J. Truman. Now, I'm familiar with M.A. Wardell from his Teachers in Love series, which is very spicy, very gay, as, you know, per usual. A.J. Truman, I have not read any of his work prior to this, but from what I can gather, he kind of has similar vibes to M.A. Wardell. So this book, I will not remember anyone's names, but this book I started at the end of December, and then I finished somewhere in mid-January. We're following these 2 exes who recently broke up about 6 months ago. They had been together for 8 years, but due to a bad experience and just bad life moments, I guess, like things going on in his life, one of them suddenly and abruptly ended their relationship, and the other person's reeling like, I don't know why he ended it. And then 6 months later, the other one, the guy who ended it, is in some financial trouble, so he's like, calls up his ex and is like, hey, can you come up to our mountain house at Marshmallow Mountain this weekend to help me sell it, because I need the money. And they get snowed in, and, you know, romance and a lot of sex ensues from there. So if you're looking for a snowed in, emotional, spicy romance, this is for you. I gave it 3.75 stars. I'd probably give it somewhere in like the 3.5 chili spice range. M.A. Wardell and A.J. Truman, as far as I can tell, always deliver very spicy books. So if that's your vibe, this is for you. I think my problem is that even though this book I think is under 300 pages or just over 300 pages, it had a lot of things going in that it was exploring a very heavy grief plot line and like emotional plot line between the 2 characters, and then you're also having this very much so sexual rediscovery of the 2 characters, and sometimes the blending of those things does not end up well. I have no problem with characters and like books using sex and sexuality to kind of help build and like explore life problems with characters. This one just needed to figure out how to meld those together better. But hey, if you're still in the winter vibes, this one barely touches on Christmas, so it's more of a winter romance in my opinion. Do check your trigger warnings for this one, because M.A. Wardell always discusses heavier topics, particularly surrounding mental health in his books. Then I finished Chaos and Flame by Tessa Gratton and Justina Ireland. I still don't know if I'm saying Tessa's last name correctly. This one, since I have the characters on the back, is a YA fantasy. If you're into dragons, this one might be your vibe. I know dragons are very popular right now. So you are following Darling Seabreak, whose entire family, House of Sphinx, was slaughtered by the House of Dragon because of something that the House of Sphinx supposedly did. She is the only survivor, and she is found roaming around the tunnels with the ability to see perfectly in the dark, but not so much in the light. She also has the ability to heal herself no matter what comes her way. She is adopted essentially by the resistance against the House of Dragon, and one day she is caught. The only thing is, when she is caught, she's brought in to find out that the, heir, the prince, regent, or whatever his title is, for the House of Dragon has been drawing pictures of her throughout his entire life, and they go throughout this story trying to figure out why that is. And, romance ensues from there. It literally says on the book, they were sworn enemies, fate had other plans. I ended up giving this book 4.25 stars. So this book, the fantasy elements, really enjoyed. Like the last 5 chapters, the fantasy storyline, I loved it. The last 5 chapters is what brought it over a 4-star, Because before that, I was like trying to figure out, okay, I love a little bit of insta love. I don't really care if you slow burn it. Like, show me that they love each other. However, if you're starting out as like sworn enemies, like his family slaughtered your entire house, your mother, your father, your sisters. I know you don't necessarily remember them, but he took away your house, your family's treasures, your family's history and knowledge. You think it might take a little bit longer to get into it, but you know what? The romance really flies, and I was not invested one bit. But the fantasy elements, I really enjoyed. I think this is a duology, and I know the second book's already out. I'm just waiting for it to come out in paperback. But read for the fantasy, not so much the romance. Then we have my first 5-star read of the month, Zodiac Rising. This is a YA fantasy heist going on. So essentially what's happening is you're following a series of different characters. There's multiple POVs in here. We have our 4 main characters, Evangeline, Nicholas, Tristan, and Alice, but you're also following a bunch of different side characters. And this is an example of when you not only have multiple POV, but you start interjecting in random POVs where it's done well. I love multiple POV, but I've been noticing a lot of authors aren't doing it so hot. So essentially in this book you have the descendants, who are descendants of the 12 Zodiac warriors. And in the 1860s, in the Second Opium War, their Zodiac fountainheads, 5 of them were stolen, and a curse was placed upon these warriors of immortality / monstrous creature designs. So some became vampires, some became werewolves, some became fox spirits, and some stayed human. No one knows why the others stayed human, it's just the way it is. But in modern times, the secret of where the fountainheads have and how to restore them back to their former glory is discovered. So Evangeline puts together a crew of, skilled but also questionable people, and they go on this adventure to find and rescue the fountainheads. And a lot of things ensue. This book is, okay, I'm going to say it's 95% fantasy with 5% romance. So this is for the fantasy lovers. I think it's going to be like part of a trilogy. I loved it. I love a good heist story. I love a good adventurous plot line. Alice was my favorite character, and the ending, I kind of called the ending. I saw something coming in the ending, but I really didn't. Sometimes it's a question of like, oh yeah, you have like 1% of the ending figured out in your head, then it's like, nope, went the other way. The ending both pissed me off and had me intrigued, because I'm just like, okay. So, yeah. A lot of reveals were happening, and the one reveal I called was definitely not the big reveal at the end, so do look out for that. I'm surprised this isn't rated as highly on StoryGraph, because it's got like 3.33 stars on StoryGraph. I don't know what everyone else is thinking, but I thought this was great. Then I finally finished this memoir audiobook, Over the Influence by Joanna Levesque, aka the singer JoJo. If you don't know who she is, she was a popular singer who came up in the early 2000s. She entered the industry at a very young age, in like her early teens, like middle school years, and she was signed to a record label who eventually just kind of held her hostage, and just what kind of like derailed or helped kind of like tunnel her career. So you're going through her entire life from the beginning of like her struggle with her parents having addiction, and then finding her love of music, her getting bullied a lot, her getting signed and discovered, and then all of her issues with her label, her own issues with addiction, all of her issues like in her relationships, eventually losing her father and all that. All I know was this book was name dropping everyone left, right, and center. She knew. She knows all the people. She knows Taylor Swift. She's met Britney Spears. She's met Selena Gomez. Like, come on. I was very interested because obviously I'm a Swiftie, so I was interested in Joanna's like re-recording process, because she re-recorded and re-released her first 2 albums, her debut album and her like sophomore album. So I was very interested in that. But yeah, I don't rate nonfiction because I'm not going to rate someone's like own life story and how they choose to tell it. But this definitely got me interested in going back and listening to her music. Her music was just a slight bit before my time. I do remember her movies Aquamarine and RV, but I think I watched them a little bit after when they came out, because I would have been baby child at the time of most of her stuff going on. But yeah, I think it's definitely a really good listen if you're looking for a memoir, and she narrates it herself. So those were all of the books I read in the month of January. We're hoping to pick up pace in February. It feels like it's going to be a better month. We don't know because the state of the world is basically on fire, but we're trying to keep the hope alive. Or at least keep a spark of joy in me, because Valentine's Day is coming up and I love Valentine's Day, even though I'm very chronically single. Let me know what you read in the month of January. What are you most excited to see or read in the month of February? And I'll see y'all in the next video.